Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakah HaKodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMSMELBORNEAU. Peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David, starting with the 144,000 and the rest of the men, women, and children out of the 12 tribes whom Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai will ultimately have mercy upon. I'm your brother Matazabath, residing from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Melbourne, Australia. All right. And just quickly doing a response to this, this individual here, as she gives her testimony as to why she decided to leave what she deems as leaving Hebrew Israelism. Now, as you can see here, this is part 2 because part 1 video was just her going into how she started off in a Christian church. Prior to being in a Christian church, she was actually doing witchcraft. All right. And basically coming into part 2 of the video, she speaks about the Israelite group that she was a part of, which I did a lesson on about a week or two ago, dealing with the gathering of Christ Church. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow for her to speak on this. And she's done about, I think, up to about a 10-part series. All right. But I was only able to catch part 2, which I felt through the spirit was just, good enough to do a lesson on and to show you how, as the scripture says, let's start off with that if we can. All right. Let me just type it in. All right. 2 Timothy 3. All right. And 6. It says, for of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women, laden with sins, led away with diverse lust, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. All right. Because you're going to have, as it says here, all right, in the last days, all right, as these perilous times shall come, all right, you're going to have men that is going to be lovers of themselves, man. All right. And you have dudes out here in these different camps, OK, that are bucking up against not teaching the true names of Yahweh Ba'Shem, Yahweh Shai. They're coming with some other doctrine, all right, saying that you can't be with multiple women, all right. Then they come on the doctrine of blaspheming the Holy Spirit, all right, talking about John the Baptist wasn't in the truth, all right, and then appealing to the so-called black woman, all right, which a lot of these camps, majority of the money that they make really comes from, when you look at it, the women, because majority of the women are mostly in these congregations. All right. And so, the woman, as the scripture says in Job, let's get that real quick. Job 39:17, it says, because the Most High hath deprived her of wisdom, neither hath he imparted to her understanding. That's why the scriptures label the woman as the weaker vessel. OK, silly women lead captive. OK, because it's easy for them to latch on to something that they have no understanding of. That's why the Lord said that if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home. And if you have a woman, all right, who's not under a man, all right, then the next follower from there should be the elders of the church. OK, this is why you'll see, us brethren, all right, mainly of the Great Millstone and our affiliates. OK, when we deal with women, all right, especially single women, we always lead them back to the videos. All right. You should be following the elders, the apostles of Great Millstone on down. Right. So let's listen in really quickly. This is not going to be a long lesson, short, straight to the point. I want to give some a quick history lesson. I got a video also pulled up by the beloved elder apostle Ramlab to go and touch on some things that she brings out in this video. So with that, let's get it cracking.
Modernly, Black Hebrew Israelites regard themselves as Hebrews or Brews, Israelites, or the real Jews. While Hebrew Israelites have many different sects and camps that all have differing doctrines, the only common belief of them all is that Black Americans are the direct descendants of the ancient Israelite of the Bible. Believing that American Blacks are the group of people for which the curses and captivity spoken of in Deuteronomy 28 apply to. All black Hebrew Israelites justify their lineage through Deuteronomy 28 and not through lineage tracking. So, as I'm reading this, my explanations are super lengthy, and I'm not going to get into the breakdown of the doctrines that I did and the research that I did. I will if you want me to. But I'll kind of summarize the key points that made it very clear to me that this wasn't true. So one of the first things was the 12 tribes doctrine. Now, the 12 tribes doctrine had originally come from Brother Uriah. Brother Uriah is a guy from One West, which was like one of the founding Hebrew Israelite groups. Brother Uriah said that he was a reincarnated Peter of the Bible. Now, Hebrews 9:27 states, "It is appointed unto men once to die, and after the judgment." Once. So, if Jesus was the only resurrected being and defied all logic for man, and man dies once, how you a reincarnated Peter? Now, besides how the 12 tribes doctrine had actually been derived, geographically and historically, many things in that 12 tribes chart just are not true. The chart had been changed over a number of times, and the way the 12 tribes chart had even came about was from this belief that all man, every man, was subject to like 18 different sects of people. So another thing that struck me almost immediately when I had got into Gathering of Christ Church was that the Hebrew that they spoke was not the Hebrew that I had been learning. I had tasked myself with learning Hebrew shortly after getting saved, and had started to kind of get my footing in Hebrew. I knew a few greetings, I knew a few words, and I was able to kind of walk myself a little bit through Hebrew. It was because I felt like it was going to be native tongue, I took to it very seriously and took to it pretty easily. Now, the Hebrew that they spoke in Gathering of Christ Church was not the Hebrew that I had been studying. Now, what they spoke was Lashawan Kadash. It's a mispronunciation of Lashon Kadesh. They called it Lashawan Kadash. What they claim it is Paleo Hebrew. And their reasoning for saying that it was okay to speak this made-up language is because they likened modern Hebrew to Yiddish.
All right, so now let's address some of the points she made in her video. So I'm gonna take
modernly black.
All right, and then we're gonna go into it.
Hebrew Israelites regard themselves as Hebrews or Brews, Israelites or the real Jews. While Hebrew Israelites have many different sects and camps that all have differing doctrines, the only common belief of them all is that Black Americans are the direct descendants of the ancient Israelite of the Bible.
So let's just address some on that. So part of what she's saying when it comes to the Israelites being of different sects and different camps, which is a fact, all right, because after the One West days, all right, in the house of David, when that split, okay, you had many of the former leaders during that time, all right, they all split, all right, and you know, you have different camps today, all right, whether that be us here at Great Millstone, IUIC, ISUPK, Sakari, okay, GOCC, all right, Shield of Faith, all of those camps reside from One West, okay? And yes, we all have different doctrines, all right? But the camp, all right, and I say this with all humbleness and readiness of mind, all right, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the number one camp who Yahweh Bashem Yahushai ultimately is dealing with, all right, through the spirit is Great Millstone, all right? Now, the next point that she said was that the common belief is that all Black Americans descend from the ancient Israelites, all right? Now, just to correct that, there's no such thing as the word black. All right. What she needs to come to the realization is The so-called African Americans, the so-called Native Americans, and the so-called Latinos are of the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. Too many times you'll always have people without understanding. They'll always throw that derogatory term, oh, the black Hebrew Israelites and the black this and the black that. All right. It's played out, man. All right. That word black, all right, is a social construct going back to 1681 from the state of Virginia. And before 1681, nobody was called black or white. All right. So there's no such thing as a black Hebrew Israelite. There's no such thing as black Hebrew Israelism in general. All right. It's just Hebrew Israelites. That's it, man. All right. That's all it is. Let's continue.
Believing that American blacks are the group of people for which the curses and captivity spoken of in Deuteronomy 28 apply to. All black Hebrew Israelites justify their lineage through Deuteronomy 28 and not through lineage tracking.
All right, let's address that. Because you'll have people that'll say, well, why not through lineage tracking? Well, let's get a precept. All right. And I believe it's in Titus. All right. Let's see here. Titus 1 and let me see, or I think it's Titus 2. Just bear with me, Salakia. Is it Titus? Let me see here. Let me Salakia, bear with me. I just gotta find it. Yeah, here it is. Titus 3 and 9. I skipped over it the first time. It says, but avoid foolish questions and genealogies. That's the key part, right? And contentions and strivings about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. All right. Now let's go into this word genealogies real quick in the Greek. All right. And let's see if it wants to work today. Because it was working just fine. But the moment I go press screen record to record a video, and then Satan wants to start intervening, you see? All right, let's see. Let's try it again. All right, the water Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right, so put it on reverse. All right, so let's check out genealogy. Just pull that up real quick. Here we go. Let's see if it works. All right, for some reason the sound doesn't even want to work. So you see how Satan do. But anyway, outline of biblical usage, it says a genealogy, a record of descent or lineage. Right? Strong's definition says tracing by generations, i.e. genealogy. Okay. Now, to understand the history, why did Titus, when you go back and read it, all right, it says, but avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions, because what you got to understand is our records were destroyed back then. Right. So you couldn't there was no way on how you can track your actual lineage. That's why this thing of ours through the spirit, it comes through faith. You see, that's why the scriptures tells you in Romans 8 and 16, which says the spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of Most High. It didn't say the DNA lineage documentation is what bear witness to the truth. It didn't say that. It said the spirit. And this is something that our people lack. All right. They lack the spirit. And so when we bring these things out, let's get 1 Corinthians, the 2nd chapter. OK. And verse 14, it says, but the natural man receiveth not the things of the spirit of the Most High, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. So when we bring out and say, yeah, because, yes, we can use Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, as a starting point to prove who the true biblical Israelites are today. But it's not just, if you are well studied and learned, you don't have to just use Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. There are other precepts and verses that you can go to show you who the true Israelites are. You got Joel, the 3rd chapter, where it talks about the Arab sub-Saharan slave trade and how the Hamites, your so-called Africans today, sold us to the Grecians, which were the Edomites. You can also get that as a precept back up in Amos, the 1st chapter. Okay. So then that's just one of many other of a plethora of scriptures that you can go to. You see what I'm saying? So Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, although, yes, that the curses is what gives the indication. All right. But that's not the end all be all. There are other precepts that you can go to. You see what I'm saying? So what she's saying, okay, you don't have a lineage tracker. You don't, the records were destroyed back then. Okay. They got destroyed. And that's the reason why we don't base it upon your lineage. I know there's another, let's go back to that. Let me see here. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, you know, you're not gonna get far with the whole genealogy tracking. All right. It's based on faith, and it's based on, you know, as the scripture says, through faith coming by hearing or of the law. Because, yeah, even when you take into consideration like the Levitical priesthood, you have to show records. All right, which let me see if I can find that in Ezra real quick. I think it was Ezra 2. To give you an example, this is Ezra 2 and 59. And these were they which went up from Telmelah to Harsa, Sherab, Adon, and Immer, but they could not show their father's house and their seed, whether they were of Israel. You see that? They needed the records back then, because you had to show your father's house. You had to show your lineage, your descendant. Okay. But we lost those records, man. So that's why Titus said, avoid foolish questions and genealogies trying to prove something. You see? So let's continue.
So as I'm reading this, my explanations are super lengthy, and I'm not going to get into the breakdown of the doctrines that I did and the research that I did. I will if you want me to. But I'll kind of summarize the key points that made it very clear to me that this wasn't true. So one of the first things was the 12 tribes doctrine. Now, the 12 tribes doctrine had originally come from Brother Uriah. Brother Uriah is a guy from One West, which was like one of the founding Hebrew Israelite groups. Brother Uriah.
Salakia. So let's correct her on that. All right. The name is not Brother Uriah. The name is High Priest Uriah. Okay. High Priest Uriah was the guy that came up. All right. Or the beloved elder. High Priest Uriah is the gentleman who Yahweh Bashem Yahushua put the spirit on to bring out the 12 tribes chart, pursuing to Ezekiel, the 37th chapter. Now, High Priest Uriah is the beloved elder in the red. All right. And next to him is King Masha. All right. And High Priest Uriah was the one that broke down the 12 tribes chart. And you can find that video on YouTube for those of you brothers who want to tap in to it and see how he breaks it down. All right. It's a very edifying video. All right. And so he broke it down to the T, and it actually aligns with biblical prophecy, as the scripture says in Isaiah 8 and 20, to the law and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it is because there's no light in them. All right. And so a lot of people get tripped up, because here's the thing. All right. When you tap into the 12 tribes chart, a lot of people, they don't understand that the bulk of the 12 tribes will be in the Americas. That's why when you read Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, it starts off by saying, verse 1, the hand of Yahweh was upon me and carried me out in the spirit of Yahweh and set me down in the midst of the valley, which was full of bones. Ezekiel was speaking in the spirit here. All right. And this prophecy was pertaining to Israelites that were in the valley. The valley represents that low land. It represents America, because when you understand prophecy, all right, let's get Micah 4:10. I bring this out all the time, which says what? Be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, Jerusalem, and thou shalt dwell in the field. All right, we went into Africa. And thou shalt go even to Babylon. We was carried over to America via way of ships, going back to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. There shalt thou be delivered. There Yahweh shall redeem them from the hand of thy enemies. But upon being in Babylon, the great America, all right, there was a point that 350 years, okay, we were pretty much shut down. We didn't know who we were as a people. All right. And this is where you get Revelation, the 11th chapter, where it tells you, verse 11, and after 3 days and a half, which represents 350 years, the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them, the Israelites. All right. Because during that time period, we was through. We was down and out. We were spiritually discerned. We didn't know who we were as a people. OK. We were being called proverbs and bywords. All right. As thus said the curses in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. All right. So in that valley, all right, the dry bones, the spirit entered into us. That's why when you go back to Ezekiel, all right, the 37th chapter, verse 2, and caused me to pass by them round about, and behold, there were very many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry. And he said unto me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answer, O Yahweh, thou knowest. And again, he said unto me, prophesy upon these bones and say unto them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh unto these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and ye shall live. You see what I'm saying? So that breath, all right, entered into them after 3.5 days. Okay. And of course, they don't have it. They didn't put it in this. But if I go back to Revelation, let me see. Let me do this real quick. There you go. You see the precept, the spirit of the of life from the Most High entered into them. So they give you, here it is, Ezekiel 37, verse 5 through 14. That's the breakdown. You see, precept must be upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. And so when you continue to read in Ezekiel, all right, it talks about take 2 sticks, all right. The reunion of Judah, southern kingdom, and Israel, northern kingdom. All right. And once you go through this, the sticks represents the chart of what we have today. So you got to ask yourself, if this was a prophecy that was meant to happen, what other people outside of us, all right, that have the 12 tribes chart that are out there on the highways and byways, as we were commanded to do, all right, to preach the 100% truth, man. You see what I'm saying? So that, and yeah, to her point, because she said that the 12 tribes chart has been changed. All right. And yeah, like I did a video a week ago showcasing that IUIC and GOCC, they updated the chart. All right. They've changed the chart. OK, but they'll be dealt with through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right, now let's go back to what else she said. Let me take this back just a tad bit.
Brother Uriah is a guy from One West, which was like,
and the name is High Priest Uriah,
one of the founding Hebrew Israelite groups. Brother Uriah said that he was a reincarnated Peter of the Bible.
Now, I don't know that to be true or not. So if one of the elders happens to come across this video and they want to confirm that, or even one of the apostles, they can speak on that, because I myself do not know if High Priest Uriah claimed that he was the reincarnation of Peter. All right. I don't know that for a fact. Once again, if one of the elders wants to do a response on this video, all right, to clarify that information, all right, Babak Shah, do so.
Now, Hebrews 9:27 states, "It is appointed unto men once to die, and after the judgment." Once. So, if Jesus was the only resurrected being and defied all logic for man, and man dies once, how you a reincarnated Peter? Now, but
You see, she once again, okay, wisdom have deprived her. She doesn't have understanding. Now let's touch on that real quick. Hebrews 9:27, because that's not speaking about you only live once, all right, or as they say here in modern terms, YOLO, right? So Hebrews 9, all right, and we'll start at verse 26. It says, actually, no, verse 24. It says, "For Hamashiach is not enter into the holy places made with hands, which are the figures of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of the Most High for us. Nor yet that he should offer himself often," all right, "as the high priest entereth into the holy place every year with blood of others." That's where the point starts, because during the time when we were under the animal sacrificial part of the law, the high priest, they had to enter in every time. But it's saying here in context that Yahweh Shai didn't need to do that. He only need to give up himself once. All right. And so now, as it continues to explain onwards, verse 26, "For then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world. But now once in the end of the world hath he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself." Right now, here's where she got tripped up on verse 27. "And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment." All right. So Hamashiach was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that look for him shall he appear the second time without sin unto salvation. All right. So she reads verse 27 as a means to say, see, men are supposed to die once, and that's it. And you have many people believe that you only live once, and then once you live, that's pretty much it. But the scriptures doesn't support that, right? Now let's see if they, because I believe, did they take this precept out? Let me see. They may have taken it out. If they did, because I remember they used to, I think they did take it out, man. Because they did a lot of updates on this app, right? Which, you know, it's cool. It doesn't matter. Let me see. Hebrews. Yeah, I think they took it out. But anyway, so let's get the understanding on this. Now, let's go to Second Esdras. All right. What's that, Second Esdras, the 14th chapter? Because Hebrews 9:27 was speaking of Yahweh Shai was only to die once, right? But this is this is Second Esdras 14:34 says, "Therefore, if so be that you will subdue your own understanding and reform your hearts, ye shall be kept alive, and after death ye shall obtain mercy." And here's the point, verse 35. "For after death shall the judgment come, when we shall live again." So reincarnation. Because what happens is when you die, you get judged. And then according to Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, you come back on the earth to live out your judgment. Okay. You come back to live out your judgment. And then that's what it is. You see, it even tells you in First Chronicles. Let me see if I can grab that, because I was meditating on that last night. Let me see. Bear with me. See if I can find it. Clear his judgment. Let me see here. First Chronicles 16 and 14. Here it is. It says, He is Yahweh, our power. His judgments are in all the earth. All right. Showing you, which also cuts Christianity that say that, you're going to die and you're going to go to hell and be judged in hell. Well, let me see if they put it in. No, they don't put it in. So his judgments are in all the earth. Right now, when you go to Ecclesiastes 3 and 15, it says, that which have been is now, and that which is to be hath already been, and the Most High requireth that which is past. And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment. Now, we just read in First Chronicles 16, all right, and 14, that his judgments are in all the earth. Okay? His judgments are in all the earth. So remember, 2nd Esdras 14 and 35 says, after the death shall the judgment come when we shall live again, which means what? You die, you get judged, you have to live off that judgment on the planet Earth. We're reading it right now, Ecclesiastes 3 and 16. And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. And I said in my heart, the Most High shall judge the righteous and wicked, for there is a time there on the earth, that means, for every purpose and for every work. You see? So Hebrews 9 and 27 wasn't merely talking about as it is appointed unto man once to die. That was speaking of Yahweh Shai. He came to die once, all right, for the sins of Israel, starting with the elect. All right. He didn't need to come and be a continuous sacrifice like what the high priest, the Levitical high priest, had to do year in and year out. That's all it was talking about, man. All right. So we got that understanding.
Besides how the 12 tribes doctrine had actually been derived, geographically and historically, many things in that 12 tribes chart just are not true.
And don't get it twisted. Remember, she's under GOCC, the Gathering of Christ Church. So their 12 tribes chart is all over the place. All right. They, like, for instance, they say that the Pacific Islanders are of the tribe of Naphtali, which is incorrect. Right. So yeah, I just had to throw that out there because I don't know if she's seen the 12 tribes chart that we here at Great Millstone goes by. I can't speak on that. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
The chart had been changed over a number of times, and the way the 12 tribes chart had even came about was from this belief that all man, every man, was subject to like 18 different sects of people.
Well, first of all, every living soul here on the planet Earth, okay, they all go back to one of the 18 nations, all right, which the 18 nations, they all go back to the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay. And the scriptures tells you that there are 18 nations when you read, when you start at Genesis, the 10th chapter, all the way up, I think, until about Genesis, the 18th chapter. Okay. Which the last of it was Moab and Ammon. All right. The sons of Lot. All right. And then Israel, the nation of Israel, was the last nation to be established. All right. So if you read from Genesis 10, and I think it's to Genesis 18, one of the brothers can correct me if I'm wrong. When you read between those chapters and you do the count, it's a total of 18 nations here on the planet Earth. So every single person, there's 7.6 billion plus people on the planet Earth. Guess what? Out of that 7.6 billion people plus, they all go back to one of those 18 nations. OK, that's something else she doesn't understand. Why? Because she's not under the tutelage of the apostles.
So another thing that struck me almost immediately when I had got into Gathering of Christ Church was that the Hebrew that they spoke was not the Hebrew that I had been learning. I had tasked myself with learning Hebrew shortly after getting saved and had started to kind of get my footing in Hebrew. I knew a few greetings, I knew a few words, and I was able to kind of walk myself a little bit through Hebrew. It was a very Because I felt like it was going to be native tongue, I took to it very seriously and took to it pretty easily. Now, the Hebrew that they spoke in Gathering of Christ Church was not the Hebrew that I had been studying. Now, what they spoke was Lashawan Kadash. It's a mispronunciation of Lashon Kadesh.
Notice she said it's a mispronunciation of Lashon Kadesh, which she's totally off. Lashon Kadesh is the other way around, is a mispronunciation of Lashawan Kodash. But we're gonna show you how that came about.
They called it Lashawan Kadash. What they claim it is Paleo Hebrew. And their reasoning for saying that it was okay to speak this made up language is because they likened modern Hebrew to Yiddish.
Now, if she had any sense of intelligence to learn how to look these things up, when you look up Yiddish, it clearly tells you, which let's do right now, right? So if we look up Yiddish, it says a language used by Ish people in Central and Eastern Europe before the Holocaust. It was originally a German dialect with words from Hebrew and several modern languages, and still has some 200,000 speakers, mainly in the U.S., Israel, and Russia. Right? Yiddish down here says historically Judeo-German is a West Germanic language historically spoken by Ashkenazi Jews. It originated the 9th century Central Europe. It provided the nascent Ashkenazi community with a vernacular based on High German fused with many elements taken from Hebrew and some extent to Aramaic. Now, why is this important? Keep in mind it said it originated in 9th century Central Europe. Pay attention to the time, because during that time period, you had the Khazarian Empire between the 7th and 10th century, when they established themselves by converting to Judaism. Right now, to prove what I'm saying, let me see if I have it up here. Let me see, Salakia, bear with me real quickly. I think I took it down. If I did, it's all good. Nah, here it is. The water Yahweh Bashamal Shah. All right. Now, we're going to start here at the top. It says this is from the 13th Tribe book, all right, by Arthur Koestler. And this is what he said based upon his research. According to the king of the Khazars, his people descended from the family of Magog, like all European nations at the time, and the Khazars were pagans. However, in 740 CE, which stands for circa Common Era, Salakia, which really it should have been AD, the year of our Lord. Okay, King Bulan initiated the conversion of his kingdom to a new and different philosophy, and before the conversion, the Kangin invited representatives of Christianity, Islam, and Israelites to discuss the three doctrines. And it was unanimously agreed in response to Kangin's question that the doctrine of the Israelites was closest to the truth. He came to this conclusion because both the Christians and the Muslims both respected the Hebrew scriptures. And also, in order for the Khazars to remain independent, they chose the faith that neither the Christian or Muslims was part of but both respected. And after the conversion, the Khazar king changed his name to become King Obadiah. They displayed much hope, but very little understanding, especially of spiritual matters. And eventually, they had to invent their own brand of the law, which later they named Judaism. All right. Judaism, as we keep telling y'all, is made up. OK, and it goes back to the Khazarians, which were Edomites. OK, so you already know where I'm going with this, because if they made up the religion, it's going to show you also that between these dates, between the 7th and 10th century, OK, they had their own scholarships. And this is when they started to change the Hebrew. It says the word Judaism cannot be found in the writings of the prophets of old, neither is it found anywhere in the Holy Scriptures. Judaism is a misunderstanding or perversion of the customs of the ancient Israelites as practiced by the Khazars. You see? And that's what it is now. Let me see here. All right, so now we got that. So now let me pull this up. All right. It says the vowel points in Hebrew were added. All right. Because we never once had the vowel points. That's why when you look up the Paleo Hebrew alphabet, it only consists of 22 consonantal letters. It says the Masoretic points, vowels, Hebrew, are, as the system is now called, Mazara. All right. It says from Mazare, which means tradition, and Mazar, to hand down. The rabbis who busied themselves with the Mazara were called Masoretes, and they were also the inventors of the Masoretic points. Keyword, inventors, which are supposed to give the vowelless words of the scriptures their true pronunciation and meanings by the addition of the points representing vowels to the consonants. It says, this was the invention of the rabbis of the school of Tiberias in the 9th century. Now, what did we just read? Okay. All right. Let me see. Let me go back to it. Yiddish language. Yiddish, historically Judeo-German, is a West Germanic language historically spoken by Ashkenazi Jews. It originated in 9th century. You see that? So we're proving that these Masoretes, they have to have been Edomites, all right, that converted to Judaism by creating Judaism. Because when they created that religion, don't you think that they would have to change the language and stuff? You see? So this invention was done in the 9th century, the same time Yiddish came about. All right. And see, Salakia, she don't know what she's talking about. It's evident she was under the wrong elders, all right, who probably don't even know this history. All right. It says by doing this, they attach their understanding to the words and names in their text of the Hebrew Bible. And this is also a reason why the Masoretic text is highly favored. All right. During this time. All right. When you read the Bible, OK, in terms of the Greek Septuagint and everything. It says the Masoretes were groups of mostly Karaite scribes and scholars working between the 7th and the 11th centuries. You see that? Based primarily in present-day Israel and the cities of Tiberias and Jerusalem, as well as in Iraq. Each group compiled a system of pronunciation and grammatical guides in the form of diacritical notes on the external form of the biblical text in an attempt to fix the pronunciation, paragraph, and verse divisions. All right. And this is what they did to form their religion, Judaism. This has nothing to do with the ancient Israelites. OK. And there's proof on that, because if you just go and look up the coinage, especially during the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire, you will see on the coinage that the ancient Jews, they still use the Paleo Hebrew script. They never used the Masoretic text. All right, because you'll have certain history scholars to tell you that they was using Aramaic. They was using the Aramaic language, and that's false. Now, here's some more information I found that the beloved elder apostle Ramlab brought out many years ago. All right, so listen to what the apostle says to bring out who the Masoretes were.
The Masoretes excised or got rid of these books, right? The Masoretes excised these books because they were Edomite Jews. See, so these Masoretes, really, they're so-called Jews. They're Edomite Jews. And these books in the original Greek are very explicit in matters of race. And when you read through the Apocrypha, there's a lot of instances where it condemns Esau. Even in the main scriptures, it is a lot of instances where it condemns Esau and the things that they did. So that's why they wanted to get rid of that book. They didn't want that book around because of the fact that They know it exposed too much about them, and basically expose their origins, where they came from, and who they are today. If you can, if the Spirit of the Lord is with you to connect those dots. It says the Edomite Jews obviously wanted to suppress this information because it shows clearly and factually that they are usurpers impersonating the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Thus, every one of these books and every scripture contained in the Greek Septuagint is detrimental to the Edomite Talmudic Jews. So that's who these devils are. They're the Edomite Talmudic Jews.
And there you go. All right. And you can pause this video and take a screenshot so you can add that to your to your list of study notes. All right. And so that's who the Masoretes were. And so what she doesn't understand is that the Lashawan Quadash is the real pronunciation, which Lashawan means holy. Quadash. All right. Lashawan Quadash, it just means holy tongue. Quadash is holy. Lashawan is tongue. Salaki, I had it backwards. All right. So you have Lashawan Quadash, the holy tongue, man. All right. But let's get ready to close out. All right. Let's get I don't know what's going on with the Blue Letter Bible, but it's tripping. Let's get Proverbs 9. All right. And all right, Proverbs 9 and 13, it says, a foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. All right. And that's, not all, but that's majority of a lot of women. All right. Who are, like the beloved elder apostle Tahar and apostle Rakar always says, if you're going to get with a woman, it's best you get with a woman who's not in the truth. Because a lot of these women, even myself, I'm starting to see that a lot of these women who are claiming to be in the truth, they just is more bugged out than ever, man. OK, they just is more bugged out than ever. All right. And we'll finish this off, too, to get some more edification on proving that the Lashawan Quadash is the real language. This is Isaiah 19 and 18, which is a prophecy that will happen. It says, in that day shall 5 cities in the land of Egypt speak the language of Canaan. It didn't say that we was going to speak Yiddish. And swear to Yahweh of hosts, one shall be called the city of destruction. Now, to show you that this is not speaking of actual Egypt, it's speaking of spiritual Egypt pertaining to Revelation, the 11th chapter, which spiritual Egypt is what? America. Because at the end of this verse, it says the city of destruction. What city is going to be destroyed? OK, Babylon the Great, which is America. So in America, OK, 5 cities in America shall speak the language of Canaan. Now, we know One West started in New York. OK. And then after that, it's spread. You have when Great Millstone came on the internet in 2007. Right. It started to blow up. All right. So, brothers started coming in and then it started to fluctuate. Then you had from my knowledge, you had Chicago, the brothers out there in Chicago, which had like over 120 plus members at one time. All right. They had to branch off in different groups. And then you had L.A. L.A. was a big, Great Millstone camp. OK. And other cities, man. OK. And this is proof that, we're fulfilling that prophecy. We're speaking the language of Canaan. OK, because Paleo Hebrew, the word paleo means ancient. OK, which Paleo Hebrew goes back to the prototype Phoenician alphabet, which the Canaanites spoke. Even I'll do you one even better to show you that it's the real language. When you look up Lebanon, OK, ancient language. I can't spell today. All right. It says in ancient Lebanon, the indigenous language was Phoenician. Right. Now, when you go to images. OK. Here it is right here. Phoenician alphabet, which is the Paleo Hebrew. So come on, man. A simple research. But see, hey, you once again, all right, you got to come up under the elders of Great Millstone, man. It's simple as that. All right. So, that's pretty much all I got to say. If you brothers want to do a land back and bring out mortification, all right. Hey, all praise to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So with that, I'm gonna close off, and I want to say, giving all praise, glory, and honor be to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakah HaKodash, and double honors to the beloved apostles and elders of Great Millstone, better known as GMSMELBORNEAU, and peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, the tabernacle of David. And it's on to the next, Lord's will. Shalom.